Hi, my name is Kate Peterson, and I'm a librarian at the University of Minnesota Libraries. I want to share some tips and some services that we have that can help you as you're working on various research projects now and in the future. Things that are going to help about um, sources, the things that you're finding, organization productivity, and some tips about writing. One thing to keep in mind is that I always think about research and writing as really parallel processes. I think we used to think about the idea of doing all of your research and then sitting down to do your writing. Well, instead, a much better strategy is do some research, find some sources, skim them, and then sit down and write a little bit about them. Even if it's 5 or 10 minutes, set a timer, do some writing. And the reason why you want to do that is we know writing is thinking. And after you've done that, when you go back to do some more research and look in the libraries, you're going to have a better sense of what you're looking for so you can be more efficient and more effective. And then once you've started to find some more sources, you can go back to the writing and back to the research and back to the writing. So really think of doing kind of that whole cycle multiple times. If you're new to writing a literature review or unfamiliar with that, we have a great tutorial that you can get to here at z.umn.edu/litreview. And that reminds me that if you want to get back to these slides that I'm going through, the Z link here on this slide is z.umn.edu/lib advanced 2020, and that will get you back to these slides. Or again, in the recording, of course, you can stop and go back as well. So now I want to just share a couple of sample organizational strategies as you're working on a research project. Depending on the scope of your research project, whether it is a 5, 10, 15, 20-page paper or a thesis or a dissertation, these are going to be more relevant if you're working on a bigger project. So once you've started to collect 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 sources, how you're going to organize them and how you're going to organize the content can be really helpful. So here are a couple of strategies to try. And this is basically just once you've found a source, reading through it, analyzing it, and then trying to create kind of a summary page or a summary document that will help you to be able to go back to it. So this is an example that's sort of focused, you can see here a little bit more on the social sciences, but it'll give you the idea here. And you can pick and choose which of these, for example, things might be helpful to write down about a specific source. One thing to also keep in mind is that if you're working again on a literature review on a bigger paper, research paper, you have to organize not only the sources you're planning on use, but it's often helpful to also document some of the sources that you've read and decided to not use, and to write down notes about why you've decided to not use those are helpful as well. Here's a very similar idea, except instead of breaking it down at kind of the source level, it's breaking it down more at the argument or the idea level. So maybe you want to organize in that sort of a context. Again, and these are meant to be sort of look like something you could print out on paper, but you could do it in a spreadsheet or various things like that as well. Another strategy that can be helpful for just general productivity, but definitely with doing research and writing, is the Pomodoro technique. If you've never heard of it, there's lots of videos that you can watch online, and it's very simple, but it's also brain-based research. And the idea is that you work for 25 minutes on a specific task. So before you sit down, you figure out, what do I want to accomplish? And you have that in your head, and then you work specifically and only on that task for 25 minutes. Try to turn off email, any other disruptions, and just really focus time for 25 minutes. Then take a 5-minute break, again, while you're set an alarm, so you only take 5 minutes. That could be getting up, getting a drink of water, walking around, stretching, doing things like that. Then you sit back down and do 25 minutes, again, of focused work with the idea that you have an awareness of what you want to get done during that 25 minutes. You can repeat this cycle for up to 4 times, the researchers tell us, and then you really need a longer break because your brain really needs to consolidate the information. If you're sort of in a learning mode, or if you're learning or reading, your brain needs to consolidate it before it can move on to sort of other tasks. So if you're interested, give it a try. This is a great time to at least try some of these techniques. All right, when it comes to writing, here's just a couple of tips and tricks about the writing process. So one thing that can be helpful, again, is being very strategic with your time. And when you're sitting down to do research or writing, again, being very aware of what you want to accomplish in the time that you have and trying to stick to that as much as possible. So breaking things down into smaller chunks is always going to be an effective way to try to get things done. Some people like the idea of sort of an inbox, outbox. So you have something that's in your inbox, you work on it, and then you try to like get it in your outbox, take it to the next step, give it to somebody else, whether it's somebody who needs to review a draft or something like that. That can be helpful. Writing partners and writing groups can be very helpful. This is a great time to look around at other graduate students and maybe, say, hey, you're interested in being a writing partner or forming a writing group. That can happen both in your discipline and outside of your discipline as well. One thing that's always very useful right now is to get very comfortable with showing drafts to your writing partner, your writing groups, to mentors, to other people, because drafts are a very good part of the process. And always ask for good feedback. One way that you can do that again is ask for very specific feedback. If you're at the beginning stage with a draft, maybe you want a person to read it and think about how your thoughts are organized, and not to look at grammar, and not to look at, kind of some of those other things that those of us who look at feedback kind of go to the safe places like spelling and grammar. Instead, think about the ideas and try to tell people in advance, here's what I would like you to focus on, and that's the feedback that I'm interested in. The last thing I'll mention about the writing process, and it's true of the research process as well, is the idea of being done. It can be very hard these days to ever feel done because there's always more research to be done and there's always more writing. But try to think at the outset of a project about what the expectations are and the amount of time that you have to give to that project, and being aware of that notion of feeling done and being done. Can be a very helpful thing to get comfortable with the feeling of not being totally done, but it is done enough for the moment in time, and then you have to move on to kind of the next piece. Some people like to try out project management tools. So here's a quick example of a tool called Trello. This is a pretty simple organizational strategy. In this case, what I'm showing here, it just has kind of three chunks. One chunk is things that you need to do. Then the stuff is in process, or you're doing it, and then stuff can be done. And you just kind of move your tasks over into these three different categories. So again, it can be a great way at the beginning of a project, or even in the middle of the project when you need to kind of get going, is to figure out what are those tasks that you need to do, and then help move them around. And it can help to, again, make forward progress, continue going forward, so you don't feel like you're stuck in the middle and not making any progress. We always suggest getting help early and often from all across the university. There's lots and lots and lots of people that are available to help at any time. Of course, from the library, you can set up an online consultation with a librarian at any time. You don't need to wait until you're super frustrated. Instead, you can, again, at the beginning of a project, in the middle, at the end, all sorts of different places. The libraries can help you, whether, again, you're starting a project and you want to know what some good keywords are, or search strategies, or good databases, or in the middle of the project and you want to be sure, am I finding all the sources I need? Or maybe towards the end of the project, you need 1 or 2 articles that talk about this one concept because you need to fill in a little research gap. Those are all great reasons to talk with the librarians and set up a consultation. We also have online workshops and consultations about citation tools that can help you, like Mendeley and Zotero or EndNote. They can help you to organize your citations in PDFs, and then they can automatically help create in-text citations and the bibliography. We can help talking about, again, research strategies, literature reviews, systematic reviews, finding grants, copyright, data management, authors' rights, things like that. Keep in mind that's all not going to happen right now, but in the future during your career, just remember we can help with lots of different things. In the fall, the Center for Writing is going to be a great resource as well. They have online consultations. One thing that I love, the Center for Writing also, in the same way that the libraries talk about that, is that the Center for Writing can also help with any part of the writing process. Even before you've begun a project, they can help create an outline or get you started in the middle or towards the end. They're a really great resource. Both for the libraries and for the Center for Writing. Also keep in mind that you can maybe want to keep going with that idea of forward progress. You might want to make an appointment 2 weeks out, and then you have something to write towards or something to do research towards, which can be a really great strategy as well. A couple of other things that are available through the library is we have a really great website all about researcher support. So I recommend going and visiting it and just clicking on some links and getting familiar with some of those services that we offer. If you have any trouble connecting to the full text of any of our resources for any reason, you shouldn't. You should be able to get access to all of it directly through just any internet anywhere that you are. But if you are having any trouble, definitely be sure to contact us because we can help give tips about a VPN or something called the proxy bookmarklet. Another great website to become familiar with and give a try is called Experts at Minnesota. So this is great for finding researchers and experts. So it's just a website that you go to, and what you can do is search either by department, whether it is chemistry or computer science or women's studies or gender studies, or you can search on a specific concept like pancreatic cancer or like the achievement gap, for example. Then what you're going to find is the results are actually going to be people. They're going to be faculty members and researchers on this campus who are doing research in that field. So it's great to help find collaborators, potential faculty mentors, people you might want to do research with. It can also show sometimes the grants that these folks are getting to decide maybe you might want to apply for a grant through the same agency, and just can give you a really good sense of kind of what's going on campus around different topics. So that's a good thing to try. I mentioned the concept of data management, and I'm not really going to talk much about it, but I just want to mention that when I hear the word data, I tend to think about numbers. But when we talk about data, we actually mean anything. It can be numbers, it can be files, it can be images, it can be audio files, it could be transcripts of interviews, focus group transcripts, words, images, computer files, anything really can be data. But once you start to collecting it, no matter how big or small a project is, taking some time at the beginning of a project to be sure that it's going to be organized is really going to help save time. So we call that, in general, data management. We have a lot of tips and tricks that can help you to do this. So you can set up a consultation to learn more about the data management. Some grants and some journals are requiring what's called a data management plan. And again, we have lots of tools that can help you to do that. You don't have to just try to make it up. Instead, there's a lot of good templates and things that can help with that. Of course, we never want anybody to actually lose data, and we hear about it all the time. So that's another thing that our data management experts can help with, is how to be sure that your data is backed up, that it's secure, and that it's where it needs to be. So feel free to, again, set up a time to talk about that sort of piece. We have a great program called DASH, Digital Arts, Sciences, and Humanities, that have a lot of really great online workshops and, again, consultations around using various tools and things and thinking about research and scholarship in new ways. So definitely recommend going to that website and figuring out what they're offering. Almost the last piece here is the University Digital Conservancy. That's, again, another website you can go to, and that's where the university houses a lot of the scholarship and research that's created here at the university, like our dissertations and theses that are specifically here at the University of Minnesota. So you can go there and do some searching there, or other articles and research that is created here. The other thing that goes along with the University Digital Conservancy is this thing called DRUM, or the Data Repository for the University of Minnesota. And that's a place where researchers and scholars can store and make publicly available the data that they're using in their research. Some grants ask researchers to make their data public, and this is a way that we can support you and different research projects in that. So it's just useful to know that the data repository exists. And then one way you might want to use it might be to just go, and if you want some data to explore or to use with tools, you can go and kind of take advantage of that data and play around with it in your own calculations and analysis and things like that. Whew, that was a lot of stuff. I know it was a lot of stuff. So I don't expect you to remember all that or try to use it all right now, but it's going to be helpful for you now and in the future. Definitely please ask us with any questions. Again, online consultations, 24/7 chat with a librarian is a great service. Highly recommend that. And then, of course, even good old email. We do read our email, and we'll get back to you with any questions. Thank you.